Okay, to begin with, what we do is, I like to do this anyways, when I'm just drawing an eye uh, that I'm not looking at, like I'm not looking from a real picture, I just want to do one from my own imagination. So I'm going to draw a circle here, just very, very lightly. As a matter of fact, you might not even be able to see it when I pull this off. Just going to draw one really lightly, like that. So now I have a circle there. And then I'm going to want to put another smaller circle probably right about in the middle, if we can do that. If you want to find the middle of an eye or like a circle, you can kind of just draw like a divide it in half like this, divide it in half like this, and then you can kind of make the circle fill that spot in there. And now I'm going to erase those lines because we don't really need them. Remember, during this period of time when you're just starting out your drawing, you want to make sure that all of your lines are very light. So what we should want to do is I want to, from the very bottom of where the pupil is, I just want to draw a line, really light line. We're going to erase this line a little bit later. So I want to draw it right there. And then I'm going to take one other line and put it about, probably about right here. So this doesn't have to be perfect. It can be a little bit farther up, a little bit farther down. But this is what we call the iris, okay? And this is the pupil of the eye. That's what we're drawing right now. That's up here. You can see the pupil here, and you can see that this is the eye, the iris. And then the actual eyeball, remember, it's white, kind of white, and it goes all around. So a lot of that white eyeball is behind here. It's kind of weird to think about, but underneath here too. So you've got these folds of skin, that's the eyelid, that go right over the eyeball. So like when you blink, it covers the whole eye, and then it goes back up again. All right, hopefully you've got this so far. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go about the distance. If you measure this like this, measure the eyeball like that, and go like this, just make a little bit of a line, really light line there. And what you're doing is you're measuring this eyeball here, the distance between here and this area right here. And you can get the right size for your eyeball. So if I wanted to go up here, I wanted to see how far over it goes. It goes about 3/4 of the way. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Maybe I'll do it this way. And I'm going to measure, that's the tip of the pencil to where my finger ends here, like this. And then I'll make a little mark right there. And then we're going to come in, so this is that distance right here. This is that distance right here. We're going to kind of come in about 3/4 of the way. If you know what 3/4 is, a little bit more than half. Okay. All right. Now, if you notice, this is just kind of semantics for eyes. This is just being really, really fussy. But if you notice the middle of the eyeball right there, that this side over here is higher than this side over here. If you look at a real photograph, you can see that. But for right now, I'm just going to go like down here instead. So I'm going to make this little curve. See this little part right there? I'm going to make that down here a little bit. It's just a little, kind of, it starts like a C, little small C. And then I'm going to go all the way up to this area right here. See this here? So I'm going to connect these lines here, just like that. I'll try to do that lightly if I can. And then it's like a hill. And then it's going to go down, and it's going to go down all the way down to here. So I'm going to try to get it down to there, like that. There we go. And so now, if you look at this eye right here, you'll notice that the bottom of the iris is not covered up by anything. So this person has their eyes pretty open, but the top is definitely covered. See, if I went like this, it's definitely covered on the top. And that's how you know if you're making more of a realistic eye. That's one of the ways that you can tell. So this bottom part here, it varies in every person. But so I'm just going to try to do really light. And then I'm going to try to connect those about right here. So, okay, there we are. Now we have the whole formation of the eye. A lot of the times when I get to this point, just to make me feel better, I like to start working on coloring the eye. But I'm going to make sure that I got every part here that I need to. I'm going to take my lines that I made now, and I'm going to erase them, because now they're just kind of in the way for me. And notice, when we talked about overlapping, obviously, this little part of the eye that we can't see, we're going to have to erase. So we're going to erase that. We'll erase these lines that are on the inside, because we don't need them anymore. This is why it's nice to have a good eraser. And sometimes you need a eraser that's really, really fine, like a little fine point like that. And then you can erase some lines without erasing other lines. There. So now when we look at it, you already can tell that, hey, that's an eye. There's certain things in the eye. If you ever look at a corner of an eye, it's never the eyeball extending all the way over here. It's usually that the eyeball ends about right over this area, somewhere in this area. So I usually just do a really light line right there. This part is always different in everybody, so I usually just kind of go like that. Now I will take the eye right here, and usually if we want to do a really basic eye, I'm going to make just a little bit of a circle here right now, because I'm going to mark that as a highlighted area. And highlighted just means that you erase that area, just like when we were working with the spheres, when we did the spheres. Remember we did this, made a little sphere. Let's see, I'm going to make it over here. That was a sphere, and then we had light sources from up here, going down there. So we took the sphere, and then there was some point on the sphere that was the highlight. That's where the light was kind of pointed exactly to. Make this part a little bit darker. We had the highlight right here. And that's really what's going on at the pupil right here. So I'm going to mark in, I'm going to shade in where the pupil is, because the pupil is really dark. It's really going to be the darkest part of your drawing. Like that. If you notice up here, this highlight is a little bit more reflected, because if you look at a photograph, you'll notice that almost every close-up camera, every close-up of an eye shot by a camera has a different reflection of a different background. Sometimes you'll even see like a person in there. It's kind of cool. I saw on Facebook the other day somebody posted a picture of their son, and he took a picture. I wish I had that. Took a picture of the dog's eye, really close up, and you can see the reflection of her son in the dog's eye. It was really cool. I'm going to make these just a little bit darker now, because I want to start shading this in. And in order to do that, I'm just going to make some really light lines. This does not have to be perfect by any means. So we're just talking about basic eye shape right now, and just trying to draw it a little bit more realistically. That's kind of the goal here today. And some eyes have this a little dark ring on the outside, depending on the color. Some blue eyes do, some green eyes do, some brown eyes do. So almost everybody has a little bit of this. Eyes are just some of the most unique things. They're my favorite feature of the face. Okay, so now we have basic structure of the eye, right? But now we want to take a look at, if you notice up here we have the eyelid. We have to show that this eyelid is kind of folding in. So in this one, I'm not necessarily going after this. Maybe I'll make one that looks a little bit different from that you can see. I'm going to just make a little light line. You might think that, oh, that looks like a eyebrow, but that's not what this is. This is actually just an eyelid. Some of us have eyelids like this. Some of us don't have eyelids like this. Like they're a little bit lighter. Because that's how God made us. And it's kind of cool, especially as an artist, to see all these different kinds and draw them. Okay, so now I'm going to darken this top part right here, because if you notice right here, I'm just kind of going this as a drawing reference, because we don't have a real reference. But I notice that this is darker, there's more shadow there. So I'm going to make this a little bit more dark now, because now you kind of have the liberty of being able to do that. Now that I've kind of made it a little bit more permanent. So I'm going to make that darker like that. And now, I'm going to let you take a peek at this part of the eye right here, and notice that this is not necessarily white, like this paper is over here. This is not white. And nobody's eyeballs are really white. The only white part about this whole entire picture right here is probably this highlight right here. And maybe a couple of these little tiny highlights that you'll see right here. So what that means is we have to actually shade around here by using cross-hatching. So do you guys remember cross-hatching we learned way a long time ago? So I'm going to do something really, really lightly here, just like this. I'm going to take the side of my pencil. Notice that I'm drawing like this, not like this. Because if I drew like this, it would come out like that, and that would not be good. So I want you to try your absolute best to try to do this, just really, really, really lightly. And you just move your hand. So what I'm doing with my hand is I'm going back and forth, like this. Just barely touching it. And then moving forward, moving forward. If you do this with your whole shoulder, it'll become a little bit more even. This is a little bit more advanced. Like if if you stopped right now and just said, hey, you showed somebody, hey, look what I did, they're going to say, wow, that's a great eye. But as an artist, I always like to be a little bit more realistic. And I just want to demonstrate this, because I know that there are some of you who are going to be able to do this. And I want you to know that it's possible just by using these techniques. So because this part of my pencil worked out pretty good, I'm just doing an even coating over everything. It's almost like painting it with just a really light gray color or something like that, especially since we're working in pencil. And I'll try to cross-hatch it a little bit. See if I can do that. And I'm hoping that this will come through on the video. Cross-hatch here. You guys will take a little bit more time on this than I am. I'm trying to speed things up here a little bit. Maybe I'll be able to speed the video up. Kind of fill that in. Now, I still have to put something really lightly in here, because this is not a white eyeball. It's a semi-white. So now I've got some color in there as well, some shading in there. Now we're getting a little bit closer to real. Now we'll take you can do this one of a couple different ways. I've been using a paper towel, or this is a toilet paper, or a Kleenex actually, sorry. This is Kleenex. You can use toilet paper though too if you have some of that, because we don't always have Kleenexes on hand. Paper towels work brilliantly on this too. Just take your finger, just go like that, and then just kind of gently rub over it, and it smooths it out really nicely. So now we have everything but inside of the eye there. So now I'm going to go inside the eye just a little bit. And now we've lost some of our detail, our contrast. But that's okay because we have our coloring. And we can create contrast with our eraser, which is really cool. So I'm going to take a look at my drawing just to try to compare it to this, and I'm noticing this is a whole lot darker. Remember the beginning when I was talking about several classes ago, we were talking about shading, and my art teacher would always say, darker, Mr. Jaredy, darker. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to make this part even darker, like that. And then this part here is going to be even darker too. Hopefully we all have blending tortillions today. That would be these things here, or we can use a Q-tip. I've used a Q-tip before. Let's try that out as a matter of fact. Let's just go over this little area with a Q-tip. It'll soften that shading, that detail that we just did. And I'm going to do the same thing with the eye right here. And kind of make this a little bit darker, like that. I'm going to make the pupil even darker. I'm not going to touch this little highlight right here. I'm going to leave that the way it is. Notice that the highlight is overlapping the pupil here. And then I'm going to kind of just do a little bit more of this. I'm going to kind of go out from the pupil, just like that. You can see lines like this and some blue eyes, green eyes, and you can see in the even beautiful brown eyes, they're a little bit more, a little bit darker. So they don't have as many of these, but they have all sorts of little cool things in them. My eyes are kind of brown. Go like that. See how much better that looks when you start to darken it. We have darks and we have some nice lights. And I think maybe I'm going to take my Q-tip and see if I can go over that just a little bit. Smooth it out a little bit. But I still want those really cool lines that might be there. So if you look over here, you can kind of maybe see some detail in that. And then I go like that. But still keep that middle pupil really dark, because that's what it is. And then one thing that I like to do is we have this area here is dark. I want to go right over the top of the iris right there. Make that, because there's a shadow. There's actually a shadow that's going on right over here because your eyelid is thicker than paper. You ever consider that? You ever think about that? Your eyelid is thicker than paper. So it's going to make a little bit of a shadow. So I'm going to go like this over that part. So you have an eye there. Now if I wanted to fast forward this a little bit, and just to show you some of the other things that I did, because we're missing eyelashes here, we're missing some other details. Matter of fact, this area right here probably is a little bit darker, just right there. Because we have a light that's kind of coming from this side, you can see the highlights right here. So that means this area is going to be darker. That's when it starts to be, when you start doing things from your imagination, then it makes it a little bit difficult. You have to start learning the anatomy of the face, facial structures. So this kind of shows you, right here, there's a fold in this. This kind of shows you that there is a ball behind there. There's an eyeball behind there. And that's what these parts of your face are for. Sometimes the eyes kind of stand out a little bit more this way. And sometimes they go further back. So that means in some people you may not see this lid as much if the eye is a little bit further back. But let's say in this person, it is. So I'm just doing some light shading there. And I'll go like that with my Q-tip until it goes over. And I'll do the same with this other little shading thing that I did. Go like that. Now I'm going to take my eraser I'm going to make some lighter lines over here. Because I know that the light is coming from this direction, so I know that I'm going to go like this, and then right up on top of this I'm probably going to add a little bit of light. I'm going to probably add a little bit more of a shadow on the eye right here. There's not necessarily a line usually, so I'm going to do that really pretty lightly. I just want to add a little bit of detail to it. And usually the corners of the eyes, like this, have a little bit of shadow in them too. I'm going to use my tortillon for this because it's a little bit better for detail. Right here, I'm going to smooth this out a little bit. Notice on the bottom of the eyelid, a lot of you, if you look at your eyes, you might be able to see this too. There's actually this little spot where you have kind of a ledge to your eye. You can see that here too. This is a ledge. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to lighten that up a little bit with my eraser. Let's add some eyelashes. So now eyelashes, you don't have to draw like every single eyelash, but you know that they're there. And eyelashes do this thing where they're like, they actually come out of your eyelid like this. They go like that and they curve up. You probably notice that with your own. And they just go every which way. And you'll notice these ones here are kind of, they're not all going the same direction. So I'll just add them. I'll start from here and I'll just kind of just put some in there. Just take your pencil and kind of flip it up, and I'll add some. Everybody has these. Some people have less eyelashes, but we all have some eyelashes because they serve a purpose. God made them to kind of keep things out of your eyes. There. And then I'll just add a few down here too. Just little ones. I forgot something on this eye, didn't I? I forgot the eyebrow. So eyebrows are really interesting. Everybody has different eyebrows too. So I'm just want to make an eyebrow. I'll just make it part of the eyelash there. How about that? And it's just kind of some lines. If you look at people's eyes, they have hair that goes this way, and they have hair that goes this way too. I'm just going to do this for the sake of time. Just make it a little bit like this. There's a little bit more that we can do with this, but this is the idea of how to draw a realistic looking eye. You notice right here the difference between this eye and this eye is that this one's darker, and I used charcoal pencil at the end, like I will on this. If I wanted to do this even better, I would take some charcoal pencil and I would put this in, because you can see it makes it darker. And the darker of any drawing, and the difference between the lights and the darks, the more contrast that you have, the better. And I can do a lot more with this eye. This could have some highlights to it, but I think for now, for time's sake, we're gonna stop, and so we can do our own. And I appreciate you, for those of you who are watching this later, I appreciate you watching the video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.